So welcome to the orientation video of the new Pierce Enforcer 2020. So here we go. I'm your host, Lieutenant Michael Finley. All right, so let's take a look at what's inside this beauty. As you open up the cab, one thing you'll notice is the battery voltage meter lets you know if it's fully charged or low. It's also an indicator if you're plugged into shore power. Here is your seat height adjustment. As we pan over, you got your battery switch. This turns on main battery power to the system. And as you know from your drives, ignition and start. Next to the battery switch, you have these 3 ports. These are for Anthony to use. We don't have to worry about that. ABS diagnostics and engine diagnostics are for Anthony as well. When we turn those on, it'll give you a series of blinks that can help diagnose problems with the engine. The DPF regen is for the exhaust regeneration that this engine has. It kicks on automatically, but at times we may want to force it into regen. That's what that switch is for. There's an interactive that you will be able to study up on Target Solutions to better understand when to use this. On the other side of the engine diagnostics is the regen inhibitor. This is pretty important. There are times where you do not want the engine to kick into regen. It can happen, regen can happen while you're pumping or in high idle. So if you are out on a hot, dry day and you're parked next to tall grass, or you're parked next to a bunch of cardboard from a recycling bin, the exhaust can reach very high temperatures, and you may not want that to happen when you're parked next to combustibles. So the regen inhibitor will tell the engine not to kick into its regen. Above that, you have our inverter switch. The engine can power most everything we need based just off of the alternator and the engine itself. We're going to leave this in the off position, and that just allows for the engine to pull less draw from the battery source. If you do need it, if you're going to be running long-term tools that need AC power, just turn it on. Quickly, let's go over the steering wheel. There's some buttons here, make it easier while you're driving. You have an air horn button. This is your front dome light. This is your rear dome light. This one here is your ground lights. In the middle, you have your horn, also air horn. This is an option to turn on your emergency lights. Then you also have your growler, siren, brake, and activation. This is a momentary windshield wiper switch. If you just need to clear your windshield wipers from mist or a quick swipe, you're going to hit this one. Okay, so we'll go quickly over the startup procedure, the way you should do it. You're going to reach down, turn on your battery. What's going to happen when you turn on your battery is that you'll have your dash illuminate. When you hit your ignition, you want it to go through the full sweep. So now it's gone through its full sweep. Now I'm going to hit start and start it up. Okay, here is one of our many options to turn on your emergency lights. Just an emergency light switch. Why do we have 4 different ways to turn on your emergency lights? Well, this one is so that when you're checking rigs in the morning and you want to turn them on real quick, you can just reach in the cab and turn them on, not have to climb up to do so. Next to that, you have your main headlight switch. If you turn it to the middle toggle position, that will turn off your headlights, but will leave your marker lights as well as your dash illuminated. So maybe if you're sitting on the side of the road and you don't want to blind oncoming traffic, but you still need to be on and be visible, you might want to flip it to that switch, and then you can obviously turn it completely off. This is a panel dimmer. It will just brighten mainly your display screen here. As we come over here, you have your command zone, a lot of different features on here that we're gonna have to get into another time, but just know that this is both a touch screen, and you can also use buttons to toggle through the different options. Along with the buttons on the bottom, there's also these little bars on either side, and these are swipe bars that you can bring in, and that will give you other options as well, mostly lighting options. So here's another emergency master, and you can indicate which ones you want just by pushing those. Same thing for the other side. Over here we have our high idle switch. If you want to turn on you're going to be sitting for long periods of time, turning on your high idle will help to keep the system charged and the engine running nicely. Okay, so as we go down to this set of rocker switches, it's right by your right knee as you're driving. You have your momentary opticom switch. Ideally, this would be used in a situation where you're at a stoplight, there's vehicles around you, and a call drops, and you need to clear the intersection and get yourself some breathing room. If you just turn on your emergency lights, sometimes people panic and get a little crazy. This allows the light to turn and people to start to move in a place where they can get out of the way when you do turn on your emergency lights. Perimeter lights are ground lights. Your high beam flashers, this can be turned on only when your emergency lights are all activated, and you can toggle them on and off according to your needs. One thing to note there is that when you pull your e-brake, those will be turned off, and then they'll be turned back on once the e-brake is released. You have your air horn kill switch, you have a fan clutch disengage switch, and your siren brake hiding over here. Right above your transmission selector, you have this set of toggles. This is your engine brake, your Jake brake. This can be turned on or off according to your needs. Next to that is your settings if you want low, medium, or high. And as of right now, high is in the topmost position, medium's in the middle, low is at the bottom. Heated mirror option for those cold days. Your light indicators for pumping, your water pump engage, and your phone system engage. Now I'm going to go over putting the rig into a pump. Quite simple operation. We're going to start it up, and I'm going to talk to you over the sound of the engine. Full sweep. Okay, so as you pull up to scene, you're getting ready to put it in a pump. Once you pull your e-brake, this will automatically put it into neutral. You can see that by the indicator here. Up on the switch, it says stationary, okay to pump. That means that we're in a position that we can transition this into pump gear. Push the button, I'm in pump. You're going to see a new display kick up. You're going to show your RPMs of your engine, your pump engaged, and then it's going to have some additional indicators for your engine operations. Another thing to note is on this one, since it's a PTO operated pump, you won't have any kick up in the speedometer like we did on our old ones. Okay, so the foam system. Now this foam system switch is for pump and roll operations, so we do not need to turn that on our regular operations. It just needs to just know what it's there for, but all foam operations happen at the pump panel. So now we are in pump. There's a green light and no red light. If I wanted to go to pump and roll operations, I'd take the e-brake off and I'd put it into drive, and now you'll see a red light kick on. That means we're in pump and roll. And we're back. I'll quickly go over the HVAC system in here. There's 3 individual cores that operate individually of each other. You have your defrost core, your heating, and then your AC. One thing to note is that anytime you turn on your defrost, the AC will also kick on. The first step in defrosting is indicating what temperature you want it set at. So if it was a cold day, you might want to turn it up. And then this is your fan increase button. Now you turn that on, and it's also turned on the AC. Heating is individual and works by itself, and then your AC is the same. Your windshield wiper is an old school windshield wiper toggle. There is resistance that you have to overcome, so once you turn it, it'll stop, and it'll go at a slow pace, and you have to click to the next one to increase the pace. Don't forget to turn this off when you're stopped, because running those dry is really bad for the blades. I'm moving down. You have your mirror adjustment knobs. One's for the convex, one's for the flat, and then the toggle goes back and forth depending on what mirror you want to adjust. Okay, as we pan up, you got your go lights here. The driver and the officer each have their own controls. They are directly above us and can be used for down wires and locating things higher. Go to this toggle switch. This is your next emergency lights set of toggles. This is your main. It'll turn them all on. And then you can control them individually by turning on or off which ones you want. As I pan over, we have our scene lights. So driver scene, that's going to be just right off the driver's side of the rig. And then you have your corner lights. That's front corner that shine at a 45-degree angle off the front. Your front flood is the brow light. It's the strip LEDs. Then we go over to your passenger side scene lights, passenger corner, and the rear scene lights. Next to that, we have our directional light bar. This switch is not operative. This is for another function that we don't have on this. You set which way you want to direct traffic or what indicator you want. So if I want to go to left, I'm going to go to left, and then I'm going to hit high. And that's for brightness, not for speed. So the brightness of the lights. Next to that, you have your tire pressure indicator. This is the way we check tire pressures from here on out. The tires are set with remotes that send digital readouts to this display, and they need to be taken off by Anthony. So do not take them off when doing your weeklies. Just come up here and check. These tire pressures have not been set yet because we're not under full load yet, but they're all within the range as of now. Pump pressure, tank level, and foam level, these are all for pump and roll operations, and will be working by the time this is in service. Got a nice old school siren set here that you are all familiar with. And then we have these great fans that help with keeping us cool and keeping our windshield defrosted. And don't forget about our handy dandy sun visors. Quarter turn, flip it down, and now we look cool. Behind the driver's seat, you'll see this speaker. With our current headsets, I don't see a lot of need for this speaker, but this is the speaker we use for our backup camera. The volume for that is on the speaker itself, and it can get really loud, as I've learned. Now we're going to jump up into the officer's side. Tablet storage, Knox box key, phone holder, as well as your latte cup holder. Can't go without that. Quick access to your emergency response guide, as well as your map book stored under here. Here we have our only charger at the time for our new radios that also work with our old mobiles or portables. Starting up top here, we have our air horn pull cord. This is a settings for our Firecom headsets. And then we also have access to our emergency lights on the officer side that mirror those on the driver's side. Here we have a blank for anything that we get in the future that we may need, i.e. stereo. Go light for the officer controls. As we pan underneath, you have your Firecom base station. And this is something that you need to read up on Target Solutions under the quick startup guide for Firecom headsets. Over here, no, that is not a cigarette lighter. It is USB charge ports. And then you have your mechanical siren and your siren brake. Let's take a look at our seats with our packs in them. These are an inertia locking pack holder. That means there's no more straps or levers to pull to get these packs out of the seat. If you just pull on them, they'll come out. If you're in an accident, the inertia from the accident will lock that pack into place and keep it. Up here, these are magnetic strap holders. When you pull this, it will just release the magnet and you can just put them on and it keeps them out of the way for other times. So you can pull them out, and to put them in, you just push it in. Our very own installed this great idea. This is a kill switch for our PEPWave and modem. So if we have to do a hard reset, we don't have to enter into the box to get access to it to unplug it. We can just kill the switch for 15 seconds and turn it back on, and it'll be a complete reset. Okay, so we're gonna go over putting the rig into pump. Pretty simple, less steps than our original, or our Spartans, but still you need to know how to do it. You go through your startup procedure. Once your engine is in neutral and your emergency brake is set, all you need to do is push the fire pump button and you're in pump. You're going to get the indicator on the command center. You're going to hear the change. You're going to pump in neutral. This is a PTO based pump, so you do not have to put it into drive. You do not put it into drive. E-brake is set, and we're going to get out and go to the panel. Bit different tank to pump than our previous versions. There's an electronic valve. You click the green button once, and that'll open your tank to pump all the way. Over here, you're going to see your RPM readout as well as multiple different engine indicators to let you know that the engine is doing fine. We don't need to know what every green dot is, but we do need to know that if it turns red or flashes at you, that's an indicator that something's going on. We pump everything in pressure mode unless we're doing drafting or potentially doing some relay pumping with another tender. Do that by hitting control mode. It kicks on. Primer's right here. It's a push to prime, not a pull to prime. And it's a Venturi primer, so you just need to exercise that regularly. Clears the air out of the pump. This is a new system, so the pump is really, all the seals are tight, so there's chances that there's air bubbles in that system. That's going to speed up your process and help you not to run into troubles later. Your tank recirc valve is on this valve over here. You can crank that. It's good to just keep water flowing through that pump, keep it cool. Throttle is to the right to increase. You have your master discharge up here, but you also have your PSI indicator here that lets you know where you're at. That's basically how to get it into pump. Okay, so one of the first things you want to do when using the monitor is you want to get it to extended to the up position. That's this box right here. It just has it says extender on the top of it and an up and down arrow. The only job this has is to move the monitor to the up position. Stops, you can hear it, the light turns solid green, you know it's in the up position. Now you have two ways to operate the functions of the deck gun. You can use the mounted remote, or you can use the remote. And this is released by pushing it up fairly hard, and then it releases it. You push your auxiliary button to turn on the system. You're going to step back so you can see where you're pointing. Once you get it set, get a good view, you have to come over and you have to turn it on at the panel. It's fairly accurate. If you can take a step back and get a good eye line of vision to where that nozzle is pointing, you can hit your target pretty directly. You can also walk around quite far. I think it's like over 300 feet away from the rig with this remote, and so you can really dial it in and have control over it. This remote does not have the ability to open and close the valve. The valve is on the panel, but this does have the ability to change your stream patterns as well as move it. And there's also some oscillating features that are very nice too. If you are done using the monitor, you hit fog and oscillate at the same time and it will put it to stow. Oh, for 3 seconds. So as that's going into the stow position, don't forget you still need to put it down into the crow's nest. And that's your basic operations. So NFPA requires that there is a manual override for your pump system. The only failure that we're going to have and are able to overcome is if there's a switch failure in the cab and we're not able to activate the electronic pump gear by the switch in the cab. So what they've done is they've included a switch that bypasses all other electrical regulatory features on this rig. That switch is right over here. So behind this panel, you'll see a red toggle. A red cover over a toggle. In order to go to bypass the system, you just flip this over and now you're in pump. Now you just go back to the same operating procedures as you would have if you put it into pump in the cab. Turn it off. Go back out. Okay, ladder rack's pretty self-explanatory, but it is hidden down here. There's a master on switch that turns on your ladders. And actually, if you could pan into the lock up top, when it's in the stow position and the ladder rack lowering feature is off, that lock kicks in. So as soon as I turn that switch on, that lock should clear. Double check every time you put the ladder down that has cleared. If you're in a situation where the rig has been sitting a long time off, or there's a chance that you don't have air in the system, that lock will stay locked. So you can ruin that lock by overcoming that force with the power of the hydraulics that bring the ladder down. Then there's just an up and down toggle. Flipping it down, brings it down, and I won't make you watch the whole thing. And back up. When you go up, you're gonna hear it stop, and you're gonna watch the lock engage once you flip off the system. There we go. All right, cab tilt operations. The cab tilt lift is right below the ladder rack. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put it in either the raise or the lower setting. If we wanna raise it, we're gonna flip that up to the raise setting, and then we're gonna use the toggle to activate the actual hydraulic pump. Do not forget that every time you tilt the cab, that you go through the cab, make sure it's secure, that nothing's gonna fall and go through that windshield. Okay, so if you come with me, the strut lock is on the other side. So right here is a redundant safety feature. It's just held in by this rubber grommet here. Just pop that up. And you can zoom into where that goes. That will be your additional safety feature. All right, so just when you're putting it away, it's the reverse of everything we just did. We're gonna clear our arm here, that's our safety feature. Make sure that the cab isn't resting on it. If it is, just lift it a little bit. Put that away, make sure it snaps in, and then we're gonna go to the other side. And Now I'm just going to hit this whole cover down that will also flip the toggle to the lower position, and I'm going to activate it. Okay, so the red light turns off here once it's in the locked position, letting you know that the cab is down and locked into place. All right, so the one thing about the pump is that it kind of flips some of our pumping dispositions on its head. And literally it flipped the discharge being lower than the intake. So really important to know your different discharges. On the officer side, you have this 2.5-inch discharge and then your 4-inch Stort's discharge. Those are operated by an electronic valve from the pump panel. If there is a failure in the electronic valve, there is a way to overcome that failure, to open it or shut it, and it's through these bolts. One's right here and one's right here, and they obviously correlate with the matching discharge color. The key to that is in the middle compartment here. It's this one here. And on the end of it, you can see that there has been welded on a socket, and that fits into the valve. I'm going to slip that right onto that hex bolt, and you can just turn it lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Okay, looking at the driver's side panel over here, you can see that they are all manual activated valves. You have 2.5-inch discharges on this side, and then as you swing over here, you have your auxiliary in 2.5-inch. One thing to note on the Jaffrey valves here is at the top you have your bleeder. We connected this little hose so that we don't get wet when we go to turn it on or off. Here is your setting for your intake pressure. The idea behind these is that the pressure is set to the step level. As you can see, there's off and then it steps up. That's even with this inner ring here. So right now the intake pressure is set to 200. This is your valve for turning on or opening, I should say, your Jaffrey valve. Most of these are historically on the side, but because of the layout, they have this, basically it's a gear transfer case here that switches the gearing so that you can open it from the face. What that does, however, is it reverses the opening direction. So it's actually righty open, lefty close. This lever here is for drafting foam out of different buckets or barrels that you may have, maybe long duration foam operations, or just filling the tank. This has a pump for filling foam, so you don't have to climb up and dump it in the top. So here's your pump panel. Pretty much the same as any other pump panel, just the arrangement's a little bit different, and some of the valves are different than what we're used to. Here's your monitor remote. This one is permanently attached to the rig. You have your front discharge, your number 1 and number 2 crosslays, which are red and blue, just like our other ones. These are going to be your pre-connects. As you move over, you have your rear, which is green, and that's your 2.5-inch blitz line. You have your primer here, and you have your governor. Now, take the time to go through the governor interactive that's on Target Solutions to better understand how this governor works. Up top, same as everything, you have a master intake and a master discharge. This is your foam level for your tank, and then you have a PCM fault, which lets you know that there's something wrong. It normally has to do with communications between the engine and the pump operations. Water tank level is on your governor, but we also have one on the side, either side, driver and officer. Move down extender for your monitor, your tank. I should go here first. Cargo lights. This lights up your hose bed, so when you're loading that in the dark, you can light it up and have light to see. You have your tank resert, tank to pump, And this is your deck gun or your monitor. These are your two valves for the officer side next to the Jaffrey valve. Specifically written out on their side, large diameter, so there's no mistaking which one is the 4-inch. Some whiteboards for taking notes, one right here, one right here. This is all your Husky foam system controls. Very easy, you just turn it on, you prime it, and then you set your percentage and it's a go. So there's also an interactive that will be on Target Solutions that you should be looking at for operating the Husky pump system. This is your master pump drain. I'm sorry, your primer drain. And then you also have drains across the bottom. These are different operating drains than we're used to. These are just pull it straight up to activate and to close. Do not pull the foam pump discharge drain or else you will dump foam all over the ground. Here's our removable remote. Give it a good pop on the bottom. It pops up and it clears. To put it away, you set it in, set the top back. Okay, going to the storage beside the pump panel. This is a shelf that Anthony doesn't want any of us to put anything on, so just stay clear. However, don't block it either because airflow needs to get in there. We do have a little flare container. It's just a magnetic knob, so you just pull it if you want to access the flares. Pull out fitting shelf. This little blue switch right here will unlock it and you can pull it out. All these are on a base that locks in these fittings. If you pull this, you're able to pull off the fittings. There's a little bit of resistance, but you don't need to push the lock switch to push it back in. Just push it back in and it locks. Kind of going over to a bag style hydrant bag. Just a couple things to think about. Keep the handle to the front of the rig, if you can see that. It's less to get caught on. You don't get caught on the LEDs here. And also keep the handle pointing out so you can grab it, then grab the top and set it down. A little quick note about fuel and DEF fluid. They're both in the same compartment, just to the rear of the driver's side rear tire. This has to be flipped down in order to fill the DEF fluid, which is the blue cap. If you're flipping down something to fill fuel, you're doing it wrong. This is a fuel cap storage. It fits both caps. One good rule of thumb is to, at 3/4 DEF, go ahead and top it off. Currently, we carry 2.5 gallon DEF fluid containers, and that will put you at full. So basically about 2.5 gallons per quarter tank is a good rule of thumb. I'm sure most of you have figured it out by this time. We've moved to the rear compartment of the driver's side. These are called tilt and deploy TNT tool mounts. Quite simple operations, actually. They store in the vertical position. One click in, that unlocks the system, and you can tilt the tool out, which will allow you to grab it easier. When you're done, you put the tool in, tilt it up, and it automatically locks. Don't forget about your switches on the rear of the truck. You have your rear scene lights and your hose bed lights, again for loading hose at dark hours. That will help light up the hose bed. When you're loading hose, make sure you keep your flakes clear from your backup camera. That gets to be pretty high, so one of the options you have is to use this pull out step or flip out step. You unlatch it on the side, it rolls out, allows you to climb up and read it. Let's talk mirrors for a second. To adjust these mirrors, the only adjustment that can be done on the fly is from the inside, and that's tilting the convex and the flat mirror. If you come to work and you need to set it up in a different way, whether it's swiveling the whole casing here or swiveling the arm in any way. That has to be done with tools. I don't recommend it, but if it's the only way you can drive safe, just know you can't force it. It also has these extrusion points. There's one here, there's one here, and I'm told by the manufacturer there's also one in the arm bend right here. What will happen is if that makes impact with anything, those are the points of weakness and they should shear there. However, if you do shear those, we're buying new mirrors, so still avoid making contact with them.